Hey, welcome guys. Today we are going to be building, this is Das Werk's Jagdpanther. And by building I mean we're going to be painting and weathering. We did the build video a couple weeks ago, and now we're going to do a lot of oil dots is going to be really the primary focus of this. So getting those good kind of streaking effects, dust effects, things like that. We're also going to use some pigments and some other washes and things, but we're not going to go crazy heavy weathering, but we are going to try to make the tank look very lived in. This was an awesome kit. It is a fantastic canvas for weathering, being such a large vehicle, having big, kind of wide open side panels for something like oil dot weathering. And we'll kind of talk about what works well and what doesn't when you're trying that method. So without further ado, let's flip it over to the bench. All right, so jumping right in, this is obviously post-build. If you watch that, thank you for watching and welcome to this. If not, feel free to check out that video. We'll start off with, as you saw a second ago, a surface primer from Tamiya, as well as a dark yellow for the base coat, and then I'm going to use that German gray. These were just two spray paints that I have left over from other projects. We'll use the German gray to start the tracks, and then we'll finish it with some dry brushing. Recently, and I apologize for the rather shaky footage here, I don't have the ability to do anything other than hold the camera in my left hand and spray paint in my right, but I just wanted to show kind of the distance in which I spray these Tamiya paints, as well as kind of the quickness of it. And there you see some shimmer. We don't want it to be soaking wet, but we do want it to be wet. So finding that nice balance will allow those really nice lacquer paints to self-level and work as they should. Then we'll do the road wheels, and we're gonna, I call it cheating, although it's not at all, with a paint marker here. It feels like it is. And so we'll talk about this when we get to the brush painting of the camouflage, which will be the other kind of main focus, I guess, of this. Some acrylics work over Tamiya's lacquer paints, and some really don't. So those paint markers, the first layer kind of does nothing, but you just have to kind of stick with it. And for the tracks, as you see on the left there is the finished product that I want. On the right is just the German gray base coat. And then what we're going to do to get that finished product is we're going to use this Dio, it's an Ammo by MIG product for dry brushing. It's just their gunmetal color, and we're just going to highlight, all of the raised ridges and everything of these tracks to get kind of that multi-tonal grayish, metalish, everything going on here. It's an awesome product, totally not necessary, but it does make dry brushing very convenient. Once we have that done and those are all nice and dry, we'll go ahead and we will assemble those back onto the vehicle. I am going to use a little bit of super glue on the tracks just because there is some tension, and then we're going to also use it on the body here, simply because I don't want to use extra thin cement. The XF, aka acrylic versions of Tamiya's paints do not usually look like their nice lacquer spray paints. So I don't want to mess this paint up and have to repaint it, because you can always tell, unless it's the metallic colors. Once we have that attached, we're going to go ahead and we're going to paint up our spare tracks here. I am going to use a dark track color just to set up basically the rust effects and things that we're going to do in the second half of this video. So we're not going to go crazy giving that a perfect paint job. We just need it to look good enough for our purposes. Then we will carefully paint up our tow cable here, or tow cables. As well as the tools on the back. And this is just like a polished metal color, gunmetal color. I kind of find all the silver metallic tones to be identical. So I kind of just use the same one all the way around the vehicle. It would probably make the most sense to use different tones of, metallic colors, but again, I usually don't end up seeing much of a difference. Then we'll get some wood tones painted here onto our tools. And we will dry brush. I've already obviously painted the machine gun the MG34 here black, but we'll go ahead and we'll dry brush with our metal color to make those details, kind of pop out and give it that true sort of gunmetal color. Turned out a little bit darker than I normally would want it to, but I think it is good enough. So, Ammo by MiG, love them. I have a ton of their products, all purchased by myself, but they do not brush over, or on top of, I should say, Tamiya's lacquer paints really at all. Vallejo does pretty well. You definitely need to get a couple, 1 or 2 layers down first, but as you can see here, what we're going to do is we are going to water it down. It's probably 60 to 70% water, and then 30 to 40%. It's a light brown, red, and black mixture of paint that I've made. I did not have a red that I thought reflected the German kind of camouflage red color that I wanted, so we went ahead and mixed our own. And we'll basically, it is going to look a little bit messy at first. Bear with us, we'll get there. We're just doing the outline here, so this is a really, really important part, and I'm gonna try to do my best. The most important part with this, as I brush upward, is to make sure that it doesn't pool up on the bottom. There are 2 places that I wish I did a little bit differently, because gravity in this case is not in your favor. You easily could tip this tank on its side and paint one side at a time, but I wasn't super worried with it. So once we have a couple layers of the really watered down paint, we're going to come in with about 60% paint and 40% thinner now, and then this much wider brush for what is really our final coat. Obviously, if there's touch-ups, anything like that. The other key to hand brushing acrylic paint is you don't want to take too long. They dry really quick, and so you want to make sure you get a nice continuous flow. Unfortunately, there's one mistake I made on the front right fender where it just collected a little bit. It's okay. The weathering is going to take a lot of this away. But as you can see, is it completely void of brush strokes? Now, if you shine a light on it and you put your face an inch away, you can see them, but they are not visible at first glance. I think this is a very nice way to do camouflage. It's a very relaxing way, and right now I don't have the ability to use my airbrush as frequently as I have before, so this is definitely good enough, and definitely good enough for those that do not have an airbrush. I will fix the tint shortly. My light has a couple different settings, but a few decals in this kit. We'll get them put on. Honestly, truly terrible decals. They just, I don't know. If you really care about this sort of thing, I would cut the numbers out, individually, get rid of the carrier film as best you can. I couldn't be bothered, so we'll see what they look like at the end. But they are, suffering from the same things that Tamiya decals do. All right, on to weathering. You saw all of the different weathering products that we are going to use there. And we'll start with a pin wash. So this is just like a dark brown. It doesn't work as well over the red. You could easily come in and get a darker color something that wasn't brown would work really well on the red, like a black. I don't care. I'd rather kind of have it look a little bit more in unison, and it works good enough. It doesn't shine as much as on the yellow, but that's okay. And we're just going to go ahead and brush this pin wash into all the cracks, crevices around all the nuts and bolts and everything else. Now, 2 methods to remove this. First one here, dip your brush in enamel thinner or enamel odorless thinner and carefully remove that way. I like this method a lot, especially around places where you want to keep as much wash as possible. This has the ultimate control. And I also like to use, and we'll do it in a second here, the Q-tip method, because what this does is this leaves a really nice kind of patinaed effect all over the vehicle, and it's the first level of kind of grime and dirt that we're going to get going. I usually use the first method with the enamel odorless thinner and the brush. I use that when the wash is a little drier, and I wait until the wash looks visibly dry, like at least a couple hours, to use the Q-tip. I find that is the best way to use the Q-tip method, at least. And it works really well around the wheels where we don't really care if we remove a lot or a little bit. Well, I guess we care if we remove a lot. We don't want to remove too much, right? We want it to kind of start to look oily and grimy and dirty down there. And now on to our oil dots. Now, this is something that I've done before on, I guess, multiple occasions. I do not do it on every single model. I kind of try to change up what I do. I know I only have so many products to work with, but I do try to change up what I do with each kit. And I haven't done this in a while, and it was one of the reasons I wanted to build the Jagdpanther, or these big open sides of the fighting compartment as well as the side skirts. So what we're going to do is we're going to take as many different variations of kind of yellow and tan and dust, as well as a green color there and a red color or two. Apply those oil dots randomly kind of all over the vehicle. And then with this large brush soaked in our odorless thinner, we're just going to work these in a downward fashion. And what this is going to do is it's going to give us, let's say we're using 6 colors, we're going to get 6 different streaking effects. It's going to change the tone of the paint, or you can use it to do so. We do a little bit. We change the yellow just ever so slightly. Kind of makes it look a little bit worn down, right? It makes it look like things have been dripping down the vehicle. I like to use the green just because it looks like the vehicle's been out in nature, that sort of thing. And we could have gone a little bit heavier on the green here, but there's always the next model. It is a little bit tricky because you cannot see what the full effect will look like until the odorless thinner evaporates. So I had a Tamiya Churchill that I built up that I painted, repainted, and tried this with. This was a couple years ago, but I tried this method on it multiple times before I really got comfortable with it. These dust colors on the oils are really, really strong, and they kind of overpower, like the white and the dust color really overpower a lot of the other colors. So try it on the bottom of the vehicle, do a little bit of testing. Don't be afraid to put a second coat on. I do come back, I don't show it, but I put a red and green slight coat into different places that I thought maybe got too dusted out. And then for the vertical parts, I'm not sold on this. I do have this in a couple different books that I have. that, if you do the oil dot filter on the obviously vertical parts, well, we need to make the vehicle, we need to kind of make it look the same right on top. And they kind of tell you to brush it wax on, wax off style. And I don't know, maybe I just left too much of the effect on. I'm not really a fan of how it looked on the horizontal areas, but I'm a huge fan of how it looked on the vertical pieces. And there's just a quick view of the side skirts to kind of show you that just washed out. Just looks like it's been left in the rain over and over and over. Kind of that effect that we get with those. Then we'll come in with a rust oil brusher, and we'll just highlight really a couple of these different areas on these side skirts, where maybe rust might have been coming out, and just to get some red tones in the yellow. I think it always looks like rust looks really, really good in my opinion on the dark yellow and on winter camouflage. So taking this opportunity to kind of blend it in also with the red camouflage. Anyways, just gives another good tone to the red. And obviously just working that in a downward fashion. We're going to end up taking most of it off, but that's the really nice thing about this product is you get to do what you want to do with it, and there is a lot of control, and you can basically wipe it clean if you are unhappy with it. Although as I'm doing here, I would exercise a lot of control with the brush on these horizontal surfaces, and try to, as you're cleaning up and blending that wash, almost try to push it back into itself, if that makes sense. Because oil paints will spread kind of like wildfire all around if you let them. Next up, we're just going to do this is a wood wash from AK Interactive. Pretty much the product I use on all of, these wooden handles for the shovels and tools and any other kind of wood part of the vehicle. It is a really, really thick wash. And essentially, we just let it dry for a day, and then I'm going to wipe it off. Wipe 70% of it off, and kind of hope that we get left with some nice kind of wood grain texture. There's definitely more detail that you could put into wood grains, but it's a really nice product if you just want to use one thing, wipe it away with a Q-tip, and call it a day. Next up, we are going to do a quick track wash. We obviously did that on the bottom of the tracks, as you just saw, and we'll also use it on the spare tracks here. Now, in a second, we'll take out our rust pigments, which are going to stick to the vehicle. Either we can put them on dry, and then we can use some, odorless thinner or something like that to adhere them. Or I really like this method, especially on tracks, because it's going to give some textured random effect. While those tracks are still wet, we're just going to hammer that pigment right into those tracks. It does make a mess of the brush and things like that, so don't use your nice brush for it. Next up, I forgot that we didn't do any chipping. And I wasn't necessarily going to do a ton of chipping on this vehicle, but that's another thing that looks really, really good on the dark yellow. So here we are. If you've watched my videos, I'm not a huge fan of sponge chipping, but I've kind of said I'm going to give it more of a try because I do like the randomness of it. It can get out of control, and then it's really hard to fix. I would not recommend waiting this long to do chipping. Just in case you had to fix it, we're doing it over all this weathering, so we wouldn't be able to go back. But like I said, forgot to do it, so here we are. It definitely excels in these really crowded areas. And it's really, really nice because you can chip the entire vehicle in about 5 minutes if you're good with it. Then we will get to some pigments here. And I'm just going to use 2 different colors. We're going to wipe away most of these pigments. So normally I would use 3 or 4 different colors of pigments. The more color you use, the contrast is always going to be better. It's going to look better. I thought 2 in this case was just fine. All I wanted to get was a little bit of volume on the wheels. And so we put that pigment down, we brush it around with a dry brush, kind of into the areas we want, knock some of that volume down. And then we come in with our pigment fixer and kind of blot it all over to make that pigment adhere. Now, you can use, like I said earlier, a wash to do this. You can use the odorless thinners. I think I'm about done with the pigment fixer from Ammo by MiG. It was really nice on the Jackson because I wanted it on the interior to look wet. But it kind of, there's no rhyme or reason to why sometimes it makes the pigments look wet and sometimes it makes them look dry. So if you've never used that and it's in your cart, take it with a grain of salt. But it's not my favorite product. It can definitely be used well, but again, a little bit of a randomness to it. So we'll kind of take a look at what it looks like later on here. But doing the same, obviously, with the rest of the vehicle. Again, not going too crazy, but I do want, to bring some unity to the vehicle. So anything that we do on the bottom, it does make sense to do on the top. These remover sponges are fantastic for cleaning up pigments. You do have to let the pigment fixer or thinner dry. Once it is dry, these will basically take it off all of the flat areas. The harder you kind of wipe with them, they will take everything off. Or obviously the softer you use them, the more detail you can kind of leave on. Then we will use 3 different AK products here. These are all different. There's like a concrete, a dry mud, and a dark earth. And we're just going to blot these randomly all over the tracks here. And we're going to put these 3 colors, I'm trying not to pay attention to where they're going. And then this is the effect. You got a little bit heavy there on the front, but this is the effect that I wanted. Just those multi-tones. They're really, really basic products. There's way more detailed products out there, but if you got to use them quickly or for stippling like we're doing here, they're really, really good to give you a really solid result in a very quick amount of time. You could definitely take a lot more time than I am to paint and weather this vehicle. The way I look at a Super Blitz kit or something that can be built really, really quick is it's kind of meant, like in my mind, I look at this like a weekend build. It took obviously more than a weekend, but I think you get the point that it's not supposed to have 50 hours poured into the painting and weathering, although you certainly can. It's the best part about modeling is you can do whatever you want. I like to do the quicker methods and just get to kind of the final product without having to be frustrated too much and everything like that. So as you can see here, this is our final product. I thought it turned out very, very well, especially again, speaking about kind of the speed and simplicity of our approach. Really, really happy with how it turned out. And if you've made it this far, obviously thank you for watching up to this point. Let me know what you think of the build. This is a newer kit, so I'd love to hear from others what they thought of it. I thought this was a fantastic kit. I really, really hope Werk continues to put these out. I don't like their instructions, as I talked about in the build video. I think that they have some room to grow with those. But these kits are also about 25 US dollars. This and the Panther. They build like Tamiya kits. And they are great, great canvases for weathering, for trying something, different than I normally do, like an oil dot filter. Really, really nice to be able to build this up quickly and obviously get to those stages. Also really nice to spend 25 bucks and not be too worried if, hey, my brush painting stinks and I ruin the whole thing. So that's that. I'm really happy with the way the brush painting turned out. I think that brush painting in this hobby it's almost like it feels like it's frowned upon. And I'm not sure why. Some of the most prestigious modelers on YouTube, will do camouflage with the brush. It's something that I always used to do because I don't like the sound of my air compressor. I don't like wearing a mask. I don't like getting it all set up. So I still love to brush paint, and it's more relaxing in my opinion. The oil dots definitely pair really, really well with it. They definitely, as you see as we kind of spin the tank in the light here, they definitely take away from the brush strokes. I'm still not, overly happy with how it looks on the vertical or the horizontal panels. But with some of those pigments and other things, we were able to kind of dull down those effects, I guess. But I really, really do like how the oil dots work on the vertical panels. Again, to bring those, you can't see any brush strokes. I guess you can, but they're the oil dot brush strokes. They're the streaking effect brush strokes. Right, so that's really, really impressive, and it's a tighter camouflage than you're going to get with an airbrush. So that's my 2 cents. Again, super enjoyable build. I really, really hope we get more of these, and I hope we get some that maybe aren't German. Not that I don't love German, and I know Werk is a German company, but there's a lot of German stuff in scale modeling. And obviously, I think we all know there's a reason. They made a billion different things, billion variants of everything, where kind of every T-34 looks the same, although love it. Love the Shermans. They all kind of look the same. Germany's got a ton of different stuff, but I want the Super Blitz line to expand. And I'd love to see them expand into something else, because I don't know where they go from here. A tiger, something like that. We already have a lot of tigers. But I guess we will have to wait and see. So again, I appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you in the next video.